And today we are going to talk about the quiz that we're going to take tomorrow. This is a quick review. Problem number one. Samantha is looking for an expression that will always produce a positive integer. Which of the following will always produce a positive integer for any given integer w? So we are specifically looking for a positive integer, meaning numbers like 1, 2, 3, anything that is not negative. If you notice, we have 4 different rules, and we don't have any tables. That means we need to create 4 different tables, and we need to look at the numbers that they produce. So let's start out with answer choice A. I'm going to start by creating a table. Now, usually we would write N, but in this problem, they want us to use W, so I'm going to write a W. And I'm just randomly going to select different values for W. Normally we would select 1, 2, and 3, but given that we are specifically looking for positive integers, I'm going to select negative values for W because those more likely will produce negative integers and will eliminate my answer choices. So I'm going to select -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2 for W. And I'm going to start by writing my rule for answer choice A. W plus 1. If I try to plug in -2 for W, I'm going to get -2 plus 1, which is going to equal -1. And right away, I can see that answer choice A is not going to work because remember, I'm looking for positive integers. And this one just gave me a -1. So this rule doesn't work. I'm going to cross it out. And then I'm going to start by looking at answer choice B. I'm going to go ahead and erase my work for answer choice A. And I'm going to write the rule for B, which is W squared plus 2W. And again, I am going to start by plugging in -2 for W. So I'm going to have -2, put that in parentheses, plus 2, put that in parentheses. Okay. And if I don't want to do this calculation, I can always just put it inside my calculator. So I'm going to have parentheses, -2, close parentheses, squared. Remember, the square always goes outside the parentheses, plus 2, open parentheses, -2, close parentheses, enter. I get this equals 0. So I'm going to write 0 next to my -2. And then I'm going to insert -1. I'm going to plug in -1 for W. When I do that, if I put that in my calculator, parentheses, -1, close parentheses, squared, plus 2, parentheses, -1, close parentheses, enter, I get -1. So again, I'm only looking for rules that will produce positive integers. -1 is not positive, it is negative. B does not work, I'm going to cross that out. And I'm going to erase my work for answer choice B. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to answer choice C. So I'm going to write the rule for C, 2W minus 1. And I'm going to start by plugging in values for W. The first one I'm going to plug in is -2. And this one, you can put it in your calculator or it's very easy to do in your head. This is going to give me -5. Right away, I can already see that this rule is going to produce negative integers. I'm looking for a rule that will always produce positive integers, so I can eliminate answer choice C. right away. I'm gonna erase my work for answer choice C. And just by just looking at this, I can already tell that D is going to be my answer. But it never hurts to look at it. So I have W squared plus 1. And I'm plugging in negative 2 for my W. And I can do this in my head or I can put it in my calculator. This, if I put it in my calculator, will give me 5. 5 is positive. I'm going to try negative 1. If I plug in negative 1 for W, I'm going to end up with 2, which is positive. If I plug in 0 for W, this will give me 1, which is positive. If I plug in 1 for W, I'm going to end up with 2, which is positive. And if I plug in 2, I'm going to end up with 5. So, D is my answer. For any value that I plug in for W, I'm always going to get a positive answer. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Question number 2. What expression describes the pattern below where n is the term number? Okay, so I'm given a pattern. I'm trying to find the rule to this pattern. I don't have a table, so I'm going to start by creating myself a table. Notice that all my answer choices have n's, so I'm going to use n on the left column. How many numbers do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to have 5 n's. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My first n is negative a half, so I'm going to write that next to 1. Second one is 1. Third one is 5 halves. Fourth is 4. And 5 is 11 halves. And now I'm going to figure out what is the rule to this pattern just by checking all my answer choices, going through them. I'm going to start by checking answer choice A, so I'm going to write my rule, negative a half n. And if I plug in, I'm going to rewrite it underneath the rule, but instead of an n, I'm going to use parentheses. If I plug in 1 for n, if I put that in my calculator, I'm going to get negative 1 divided by 2, open parentheses, 1, enter. I'm going to transform that into a fraction by pressing math and enter twice. That gives me negative a half. So looking at my table, when I plug in 1, I should get negative a half out, so that works. But let's try out another answer choice. If I plug in negative a half, if I plug in 2 into my rule, if I put that in my calculator, negative 1 divided by 2, open parentheses, 2, close parentheses, I end up with negative 1. Looking at my table, when I plug in 2, I should end up with positive 1, not negative 1. So I'm going to cross out A. I'm going to erase my work for answer choice A. And I'm going to test out B. I'm going to write the rule for B. Underneath it, I'm going to rewrite the rule with parentheses. And if I plug in 1 for n, I'm going to put that in my calculator. 3 divided by 2, open parentheses, 1, close parentheses, plus 2, I end up with 3.5. I'm going to convert that into a fraction, so I'm going to go to math and enter twice. That is the same thing as 7 halves. Looking at my table, when I plug in 1, I should end up with negative a half, not 7 halves. That does not work. I'm going to cross it out. I'm going to delete. I'm going to erase my work for answer choice B. And let's move on to answer choice C. I'm going to write the negative a half n plus 2. I'm going to rewrite the rule with parentheses instead of an n underneath it. And I'm going to plug in 1 for n. If I put this in my calculator, negative 1 divided by 2, parentheses 1, close parentheses, plus 2. I end up with 1.5. I'm going to go to math, enter 20s. This is the same as 3 halves. Looking at my table, when I plug in 1, I should end up with negative a half, not 3 halves. So that doesn't work. But in a matter of elimination, I know my answer is D. I am not going to work it out. You can feel free to work it out on your own. And let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. What is always true about the function represented by this graph? Well, let's start out. A. As the value of x increases, the value of y increases. So let's look at this. As x gets bigger, what's happening to our y values? Well, our line is going up. That means that as x is getting bigger, our y values are also getting bigger. So right now we can tell our answer is A. But let's look at the other answer choices. The variable y is always positive. Now my line continues on this way, and the y values that are being used are negative, so that's not true. As the x value increases, the value of y decreases. Well, not necessarily, because our line is always going up. So as x increases or y increases, that's not true. The variable x is always greater than y. Not really. So I'm going to eliminate that. Answer is A. Let's look at another question. Southern Phone Company is promoting a new cell phone service plan. A customer can make up to 500 minutes of calls each month for $39.99. If the number of minutes used a month exceeds 500, then the function describes the monthly charge C in dollars in terms of N, the total number of minutes used. Which of the following statements best describes this function? So we're going to use this equation to figure out how much this person will pay if the number of minutes exceeds 500 a month. If it does not exceed 500 minutes, then we would only pay $39.99. That's what the problem tells us. So, looking at this equation, before we even look at our answer choices, if, let's say, I was using this phone company, and I use 501 minutes instead of 500 minutes, then how much would I pay? Well, I would have to plug in 501 for minutes. And I can see from right here, my equation will look something like 1 minute plus $39.99. In other words, I would pay $39.99, but because I went 1 minute above the 500 limit I had, I'm going to pay 40 cents for that extra minute. And then if I, let's say that I exceeded by 502 minutes, that means if I went over 500 minutes by 2 minutes, then I would pay 80 cents in addition to the $39.99. In other words, for every minute that I go over 500, I pay 40 cents. So let's go through our answer choices. In the first 500 minutes, you cost 40 cents each. The problem says for the first 500 minutes, I would pay $39.99 a month, so that's not true. Every minute used costs 40 cents regardless of the total number of minutes used. Not necessarily. The first 500 cost $40.